Hi folks, Mark here from KLM Solutions, and in this video I want to talk a little bit about solar pond aeration. This is a hot topic, no pun intended. It is something we get asked about a lot these days in terms of inquiries through our websites. It's one of the most common questions we get, and rightfully so. I'm a big fan of clean, renewable energy. I think people are starting to focus on that these days more than ever, and solar is one of those options that I think makes a great choice in the right applications. Now, it's important when we look at solar pond aeration that we break out the various ways that this is done. So you have two basic systems. You have what's called a direct drive system, which is much like how a windmill would work. That's an intermittent thing. A windmill aerator, which we'll also get to in a little bit, is driven by the wind. If the wind isn't blowing, there is no aeration. Same with a direct drive solar. During the daylight hours, this system is up and operating. It is producing air into the pond. But once nightfall comes, once it gets completely dark, it stops. It's not going to produce any air in that time frame. Now, the unfortunate thing is, a lot of times in the hot summer months, the lowest oxygen levels in a pond will take place overnight. So that's kind of concerning, but you hope that you can get enough air in there, good dissolved oxygen levels in there during the day to carry you through. And I think even direct drive is helpful in that way. But there still is this intermittent issue, just like you have with windmills. Unless you live in a really windy area, consistent winds or breezes day after day, they don't have to be gusts, but there's got to be something moving to create the propeller to turn on the windmill. If you live in an area like that where you get pretty consistent winds, a windmill makes sense. If you live higher on a hill or a ridge, makes sense. If you're down in a valley or a gully and you don't get any breezes hardly at all, well, a windmill may not be the best option. So all in all, if I had to choose between a direct drive solar system and a windmill, which are, when you look at them, they're pretty close in price. There are a few $100s difference, I think, in many instances, so there's not a huge price difference there. I would tend to lean towards the direct drive solar more often than not because, well, if the sun isn't shining at all, we're all in big trouble. So most days the solar is going to work great day after day. Clouds, it's not going to be a problem for that. And so you at least have your daylight hours through the summer months where the aerator is running. Wind could or could not be providing benefit. So I tend to lean towards the solar direct drive in that regard. Now, the other solar system that we need to mention is the battery supported systems. This would give you the closest possibility of running 24/7 with solar. However, there is a big catch, and it is the price tag. I still have problems with how expensive some of these systems are. For example, if you take a single diffuser system, an aerator that uses a quarter horsepower pump and a single diffuser, systems like that will run with a cabinet somewhere around $1,000, give or take a few hundred. So you're in that ballpark. But put that same type of system capability in a solar full-time system, and you're looking at almost 6 times the cost. We're talking $1,000 up to $6,000 in relative comparisons. So the solar side is, unfortunately, in the commercial realm, quite an expensive endeavor. Now, if the finances are available and if it meets your budget or doesn't hammer your pocketbook and you're okay with that, I think solar, full-time solar can be a good alternative. They're good systems, but they are pretty pricey right now. The workaround that I've found with this is we have worked with a lot of ranchers out west who are very remote, and they run their entire facilities on solar. So they have a good DIY background on using solar power. So we basically just provide them with the pump or the system that would work within the framework they already have in place. And so if you have DIY experience with solar setups, there's certainly pumps that can be arranged to provide great aeration however you want it, whether it's intermittent or whether it's full-time. But the best way to do the solar side is DIY, and the savings can be substantial. So I hope down the road the commercial offerings will start to come down, and I think as the market gets more competitive in this regard, as we start to see more people coming in to the solar side, and there are those coming, although they aren't here at the time of this video, I think we'll see more competition, and then I think we'll see more pressure to bring some of these prices into a reasonable level, which anything is probably better than what we're seeing right now. And once we can get into let's say a 3 times the cost of a standard system, I think that's getting more reasonable considering the extra components that you have. So anyway, that's the current state of solar. I'm all for it. If you can do it yourself on the solar side, I think it makes sense. If you have the budget for it, I think full-time solar is still a good option, but it is expensive. Direct drive solar is probably the best option for most people. And if you have good winds blowing and you're wanting to try to work with renewable energy, the windmills are a good option too, but I would pick direct drive solar over that right now. Anyway, I hope this helps. If you have any other questions, be sure to stop by our primary aeration website, which is AmericanAeration.com. Happy to help. If you have questions, pop in there, send us a note, and we'll help any way we can. Hope you have a good day, and take care.